Firewatch is an adventure game that takes place in the forests of America, where your only job is to look out for fires and uncover the mysteries of this nature reserve being hunted by the government, spied on, beaten, tracked and monitored. However, there's actually no jump scares or really anything to justify being scared. So why does this game feel like a horror game? Sure, it's got light horror elements, but even at the end of the game it feels scary. Even after the mystery is solved, it still feels off, eerie, foreboding. So throughout this video, I will be comparing this game with another one of my favourite horror game series, Fathom. More specifically, the fourth installment, which takes place at a nature reserve in the Firewatch Tower looking for fires. So I will be comparing both of them to each other and why both are excellent horror games and have some of the most beautiful environments I've seen in gaming. Two truly masterful experiences of gaming that have you alone in nature. For a game released in 2016, the scenery in Firewatch surpasses even some modern games. To be honest, you can find yourself getting sucked into the beautiful mountains, valleys, forests, clearings, lakes, the sounds of the forest and the calming music put to at ease, and you really feel immersed as if you were in nature in real life. The atmosphere of this game is something special, and this game would still be good even if it wasn't as good as the story. Another thing that this game does well is the comfort and safety you feel in your Firewatch Tower. The scariness of the storyline you follow all but melts away when you reach your Firewatch Tower, which is little details that makes it feel cozy. The fact that you don't see another person face to face in this game besides a few silhouettes adds to the feeling of isolation and loneliness you feel in this nature reserve, where you don't leave for months and stick to your fire lookout tower, just like real life fire lookouts did in real life. This is perfectly emulated in the game, and the only human contact you have is over the radio with someone named Delilah.
Hello, Two Forks Tower. I'm Delilah.
Now you might expect a game like this to be terrifying, right? Not a game where you can find beauty in the nature of it. While yes, it is terrifying, this is also some of the best sights I've seen in this era of gaming. Sure, the graphics might not be good, but they're charming, and the aesthetics being a VHS style PS1 graphics sort of thing kinda makes it work. The beauty of the first morning in the game where you're drinking your coffee as you're admiring the scenery, which I would argue is as stunning and impressive as the views of Firewatch. Even the first part of the game where you walk through the forest to get to your fire lookout, the views left me shocked because of how cool it was. Like, look at this nature. They look so good. Another scene where this shines good too is where you hike to a campsite. And if you ignore all the horror, it's weird to say it's actually really beautiful. Like, it's peaceful, calming, and the views are great. The atmosphere this game builds can be comforting or disturbing, but there's a hidden beauty to the Fears to Fathom games. The atmosphere of both these games are very similar and pretty obvious, you know, fire lookout tower, American forest, nature, etc. But both of them also have an eeriness to it, the quietness of the forest when you're walking and Delilah isn't on the radio, or basically any time you leave your fire tower in Fears to Fathom. The point is, both of these games have the beauty and the horror to them. The horror of Firewatch is created all in your head. Not the character's head, you, the player's head. There is no jump scare or big horror payoff, just dread and your imagination. But what makes this game so scary on a first playthrough, but then so peaceful and calm on a second playthrough? And that is what I'll discuss now. After settling into your new fire tower, Delilah tells you to go investigate smoke off in the distance, and so you do. The dread of not knowing what could be lurking in the forest is a scary thought, but turns out to be two girls, so nothing scary. Anyway, on your way back to your fire lookout, you see a strange figure with a flashlight. He shines it at you and then disappears. Startled, you tell Delilah what just happened, and she consoles you.
Look, bumping into someone in the middle of nowhere is part of the fun.
But you, the player, knows that if this happens in a video game, you're what we call, and this is a technical term, royally fucked. And sure enough, when you arrive back at your tower, a typewriter is on the ground. Your typewriter. So you run up the tower, dread consuming you, and you see that the window is smashed, the whole place trashed, and your bed sheets and pillow is missing. So Fears to Fathom uses a number of tactics to scare you, but the biggest tactic is using your own mind against you. Your own mind can create things scarier than any game. For example, the fear and dread it creates is some of the best examples in the industry. It slowly gives small signs to unsettle you. The man with a shovel at the cafe, the man leaving the restaurant, your RV door being open, the bathroom door being locked, seeing a man walking in the window. Most of this can be easily explained or rationalised as a coincidence, or not important, or, you know, just normal behaviour. But the more of these events that happen, the more paranoid you get, and the more dread you feel. In reality, the jump scares in the game when the enemy catches you are alright. Better than FNAF, but not really that scary. The point is, it's not that bad to be jump scared, but your brain hates the dread the game creates, each little thing making you more and more uneasy. No, I'm not fucking answering that, bro. Surprisingly, again, both of these games have a lot of parallels to each other in the horror section. The first example is one of the first major scare moments meant to fill you with looming dread in both games, seeing a silhouette of a man. It shines a torch at you and it disappears into the wilderness. These games are both similar in that they lose absolutely all their dread, fear and scare upon second playthrough because it all requires on the fear created in your mind. Now, this is the most seen in Firewatch, as it's just a story game that your brain tricks you into thinking it's a horror game. And actually, when there is nothing to be scared of, it's just a standard game. With Fears to Fathom, that is also true, because on a second playthrough, you know you can only be jump scared at specific times. You know what all the horror elements are. You know when they happen, and no, it doesn't lead to anything until the climax of the game. Nothing happens, just the fear that something could. And this perfectly describes Firewatch. The dread is immense of what could happen, but there is nothing to be afraid of.
It doesn't seem that dangerous. Whoa, whoa! Oh, no!
Henry!
Seriously, it's completely fine in here.
God damn it.
However, in Fears to Fathom, the dread is justified. It's a horror game, and you know what's meant to happen, but everyone around you assures it's nothing, adding to your fear of being alone.
I hope you don't believe those rumors.
The gameplay of Firewatch is basically a narrative-driven walking simulator, which features you walking to a place, talking, and then go back to your fire tower, which is really simplifying it, but there are features of a game like Hollow Knight where you unlock abilities to go to new places like the ropes of the axe. Gameplay also involves communicating with solely one other person, Delilah. So the gameplay is, Delilah tells you to do something, you walk to a place to do said thing, then talk on the radio, go back to the tower, and repeat. The gameplay is not too interesting, but it's not meant to be, because it's a little radio interaction that carry it. Probably the most realistic game to exist in that way. No fancy gameplay mechanic, you just walk and talk. The game makes you isolated and walk alone, and it puts you in the mind of the protagonist Henry as you look forward to the interaction with Delilah to save you from the dread of being watched, or the boringness of hiking for 30 minutes, which is exactly what occurs in the story. Henry and Delilah enjoy talking to each other as there's really nothing much else to do.
I don't talk to the other lookouts as much as I talk to you.
The gameplay of Fears to Fathom, Ironbark Lookout, is basically a narrative-driven walking simulator, which features you walking to a place, get spooked, then go back to your fire tower, which is really simplifying it, but it's true. Without the horror, atmosphere, or anything else I've mentioned in this video, the gameplay would be dull. Anyway, this game also involves communication with one other character, Connor. Your communications with Connor are limited just to the fire tower, which adds to the horror of the game. You can also play on the computer or cook food. If you haven't noticed yet, these games are both extremely similar, partly due to the fact that the creator of Fears to Fathom Ironbark Lookout was deeply inspired by Firewatch when creating the game. They both involve walking and return to a fire lookout and communicating to another fire lookout. However, where it differs is that in Firewatch, you work with Delilah on the same page to investigate the mystery. However, in Fears to Fathom, Connor is basically against you and doesn't feed into the mystery.
You sound pretty much like a screaming lady at night. I don't know what you're talking about, new guy.
The story of Firewatch could be a whole separate video. So it starts with a prologue of text showing your life before the Firewatch. You have a wife called Julia, your name is Henry. It's happy until she gets dementia. So you get away from it all and head into the forest as a fire lookout. You are gleefully greeted by Delilah
Hello, Two Forks Tower.
on your first day, and are instantly dispatched to sort out teenagers playing with fireworks, who you get a bit fierce with, and then you go back to your tower. However, there's a man with a torch who points it in your direction and then disappears. It freaks you out, but Delilah reassures you it's fine. But when you get back to your fire tower, your typewriter is on the floor. Upon climbing the tower, you see your window smashed and your entire tower trapped. They also stole your bed sheets, which isn't very kind. Then you have to fix the power lines the next day, so you hike up and oh, they're cut, and there's beer everywhere, and you realise it was the girls from yesterday. So you find their camp and oh, it's trapped, and there's a note from the teenagers saying whoever did this to them is a psycho. There's someone else in the forest who did this. Oh, but hey, there's your bed sheets. Nice. Then things are pretty chill until you see a clipboard with logs of your talks with Delilah. What's going on? Turn around and see a walkie-talkie. Hear the sound of static. Until... Oh! What the fuck? A strange person knocks you unconscious, but there's one thing you remember from seeing the clipboard. Wapiti Station. So you head over there, but it's locked. So you venture to look for the fire control people and see if they can assist, but they're gone. It's not all bad, however, because you found an axe. So you go back to Wapiti Station, you break in, and it's filled with giant radio towers and communication equipment. And then you see a tent that looks like a research facility. They're researching something, and upon looking at the desk, you see that they're researching you and Delilah. So you run away and hide in your fire tower. Then you find a key for the cave. So you go there, and the door locks behind you. So you venture through, eventually find an exit to the cave and discover a secret hideout made by the previous fire lookout in your tower, Ned Goodwin and his son Brian. And it's pretty cool with communications diagrams and Dungeons and Dragons equipment. The hideout must have been a pretty great place for Brian and was well taken care of. So you find anchors in the hideout that allow you to go further in the cave, and so you narrowly descend down the winding passages of this cold cavern, and then you see something. A person? No, corpse. It was the dead body of Brian Goodwin, here in the middle of the cave, seemingly dying in a climbing accident. And this is such a fucking good part of the game. The setup of Brian as a lovable, peaceful character, only then to reveal such a tragic event that happened to him. The next day, you're required to evacuate the national park and return to society. On your departure, you pick up another signal. It leads you to a tape from Ned Goodwin, who in this tape reveals that it was all him. There was no government chasing you, no secret plot, just one sad, lonely, and broken old man trying to cope with loss and guilt after the death of his son. Whether he murdered Brian Goodwin or if it was an accident is up to personal interpretation. As in the dialogue, you can get the sense that Ned was not the stable type. However, he does show a sense of sorrow power in his final speech, shortly after you hike to Thoroughfare Lookout, Delilah's tower, and now you can finally meet her like you agreed. She's not there. Instead, you have a melancholic chat over the radio about what you're going to do after. You're both unsure, and it ends wishing each other well. Finally, after a long and eventful summer, the helicopter lands, and you finally see the first human. Then the game ends. A lot of people online says it's an unsatisfying ending, but honestly, I've never found an issue with it. It's a good ending to end off a great game, and in a world with stories with convoluted plots and a desire for a perfect ending that calls back to everything and ties up every loose end, it's just nice to have a calm and decisive ending that leaves you feel content, not wanting more and just calm. The story of this game is going to be pretty difficult, so just bear with me. There is a nature reserve called Ironbark State Park that is known for many disappearances. Jack Nelson, who you play as, gets a job here. It's revealed over the course of the game that he is being hunted by a sinister cult that kidnapped a hiker, and you see him sacrificed at the end of the game. And I know that was a short summary, but I would just be repeating myself, as a lot of the story I've basically explained in other parts of the video. Fears to Fathom prevents a very real and scary situation, and the game and surrounding characters try to convince you it's not real, while Firewatch presents you with a not very scary situation with games and surrounding characters try to convince you it's real. So what was the point of all this? Well, I think both of these games have a certain beauty to them. The Fears to Fathom games all have a great atmosphere. The grainy VHS style combined with the lo-fi music just creates such a great and powerful style. Ending of Ironbark Lookout is amazing. After the peak tension and scariness, being chased away by a cultist all culminates in you finally being safe, and the credits music just hits so fucking hard. And Firewatch has some of the best visuals in gaming, just a peaceful time in nature, and moments that have made me the most scared I've ever been while playing the game. The story is layered, and the ending of Brian Goodwin being found dead is just so tragic, and his father turned out to be the mastermind of it. It's just a melancholic ending, like a twisted version of those old summer memories spent exploring nature with your family and the innocence of youth. And this is all subverted by Brian's death. He died at the bottom of that cave, alone in nature.